So I think the timing is very appropriate. And I will encourage the foundation to try to get personalized letters to all the presidential candidates. And me, as a APC member, I also make a declaration to contest for president. And I meant it then. What I said was, create
Excellency.
to address. First is, we have to review our relationship with WTO. Nigeria celebrates the fact that Nigeria has been appointed as DG of World Trade Organization because they do not even understand what it represents. What are you trading with? The only thing you are trading in with oil, and even that is managed by OPEC. So what it means is that government is encouraged to allow so-called free market. Free from who? When the Chinese and the Americans are negotiating terms of trade. I think that any government that is going to come in must have a policy that seeks to, for example, if you want Nigeria, you want to sell textile fabric to Nigeria, locate in Nigeria. And the government provide guarantees for foreign investors, sky investors who want to invest in textile factory. And because of the gestation period required from the time you want to start construction and to commissioning the company, you can allow for 1 year. And after that 1 year, you sign guarantee. There is a law made by Parliament that this company will be protected for the next 15 years. Then people will do their calculation. You want Nigeria market? Fine, locate in Nigeria. And I've said so then that the logic of President Muhammadu Buhari with regards to agriculture, I found it very attractive. And he says, look, if you must eat what we are producing here, what we grow in Nigeria. And grow in Nigeria what we eat, so that we have not just food security, so that we also create jobs for our rural people. Can we extend this logic to the textile sector? If you must not dress naked, if you mustn't be naked, wear Nigeria made fabrics. And those fabrics must be made in Nigeria. You want to sell it to Nigeria, locate here. That was the policy before it was enforced, and it is enforceable. You know, I still have fond memories of one of my battles at as NLC president at Dunlop Nigeria Limited in Ikeja and Macheli factory in Port Harcourt. All the tires now on Nigeria roads are imported. Only yesterday somebody was lamenting that Chinese made the one imported from China, tires imported from China, don't last 6 months. Well, that is Nigeria businessman for you. Free market means you are free to import substandard goods, even though you have standard organization of Nigeria, and every year, I'm sure, Honorable Minister, you budget for standard organization of Nigeria. But they supervise the importation, they turn the other way while these substandard qualities are dumped here. So for me, what leaders need, what this industry need, is the courage to go back, visit, how did we get to where we are, and what do we do differently? And return to those policies that in the first place compelled, those policies that in the first place compelled the textile industries to locate in Nigeria. They didn't locate because they liked us. They did so because they were greedy, they wanted access to a market that was at that time maybe 150 million, now 200 million people. Free trade will not bring it. The celebration of African trade agreement, people speak to African population. Nigeria may not benefit from it. Are you going to trade what you don't have? So what it means that the largest market in Africa is Nigeria. So that agreement is targeted at, of course it's patriotic. We are black and Africa is the centerpiece of our foreign policy. We should trade freely within ourselves. That's fine. But this big brother is dying. This big brother is dying. For Africa to continue to enjoy the protection of Nigeria, Nigeria must be up on its feet, strong, able to take care of its own citizens, and then extend the gesture thereafter to other Africans, but not before. So I think there will be need for robust engagement when the campaign starts. Is that we have to get the unions to insist that all presidential candidates speaks to how they will bring back the textile industry. And it is not enough to celebrate economic growth. The GDP will move away from recession by 1%, 2%, 3%. These are okay for the statistician. As it translates to more people being employed, the economy can grow side by side with greedy poverty. Fewer people can become richer, more and more people can become poorer. It depends on the nature of growth and the structure of growth. Which sector is growing? If the manufacturing sector is down and the banking sector is expanding and you take additional 2, 3, 4 managers, or even the business of smugglers, they distort your GDP. So my argument is we must focus on the manufacturing sector, in particular the labor-intensive sector. That is where the jobs will come from. It is true that technology will continue to change, but there will be no time, whether by the year 3000 or 4000, human beings must wear clothing. We will not be so civilized that we will return to the Garden of Eden. So there is no question about the long-term interest that textile industry will always be required. You can have vehicles that flies, and if they begin to fly, they may not need the kind of tires they need now. But human beings will wear clothing. It will be about the nature of the cloth, the quality, and I believe the more sophisticated we are, the more sophisticated or quality textile fabric we will require. Let me conclude, because I just tried to speak at random. After listening to all the lectures, I didn't think there was really anything new to be said. You know, Your Highness, you spoke to the abandoned gas turbine project in Kaduna. It is the same story all over the country. Because to bring the industry back, this is the limitation of CBN intervention. It's good to celebrate it, but honestly, it is not the answer. Because the CBN at best was trying to deal with the issue of working capital, provide 90 billion, X billions, at in single-digit interest rate. Working capital was a consequence, it wasn't the cause. So unless you bring back, you have reliable power supply, not with diesel selling at whatever is the price, but even if it's to sell at 10 naira a liter, you can't run an integrated textile factory on generator. It's impossible. So my thinking, in an attempt to deal with the challenges that the minister spoke to about sometimes the generating companies are able to generate X megawatts, whether it is 4,000 or sometimes we hear several thousand, and then we are told that the distribution, the transmission, the national grid couldn't carry it, or it has collapsed, or if it carried it, the discos are not able to buy it. All of that talks to ill-conceived, ill-thought-out privatization policy. I was a member of the National Economic Council with Kwakwaso, at least other 2 different governments. And I asked about this power policy. We find that in most cases, they imported all the turbines, while the civil engineering said 90% of the turbines have been imported, all the things required to be imported are in Nigeria. They've imported them, either they are in the port or they have managed to ship them to the designated places. But the civil engineering aspect, without which you cannot install the turbine, is at 25%. So by the time you finish the 100%, the turbine is out of fashion. If it's completely roughing. And I won't ask at the meeting, well, as a governor. So if I talk the way I do, it's not out of frustration, it's my conviction, it has become my character. I said, sir, what is the level of the civil engineering work? They gave us the details. 25%. Procurement of turbine, blah, 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 98%. I think that was during Jonathan, just before President Buhari came into office. Then I was the city governor. And I said, could it be error of the head or of the heart? And I refuse, this is one of the things I learned early in life, never to be intimidated by experts. Or to assume that when whatever they say is true, it's not. They use jargons just to close the conversation. I ask a simple question. Let me try to understand what this means. It means, as I understand it, that you're building a house, the construction stage is at 25%. You done up to German floor or little level, as local people will describe it. But your furniture are 98% ready. And so you put the furniture outside the port, waiting for the house to be completed. Who does that? But why is it so? Because to procure is to just place an order. It requires no additional effort. And then they give you the actual price, then you tell them what to put on top. And once you pay, your own share is ready. This other guy who is buying cement, buying iron rod and so on, although you still can do something, but that will take time. But this one is once and for all, place the order, the budget, release the money, you are home and dry. In any case, you don't have any further incentive to follow through because the primary purpose at the level of the individual has already been achieved. That is the story of abandoned power projects across the country. Or that they tell you, oh, the problem is the gas assets. Common sense. You didn't know that you can't fire this turbine without gas pipelines? It's something you discover later. No, if this story I told, many of us are in trouble. Me now, I'm also concerned because I can't even be excused. Like Becky said, when the trouble starts, even those of us who are lamenting in this air conditioned room, the masses will not put us on trial. Everybody is guilty on sight. So we do need to recognize how serious the situation is. So what is to be done? I believe, even when I was chairman of the ruling party, that we ought to, and if this government does it, the next government must revoke the privatization in the manner that was done in the power sector. Because the distribution companies were handed over to individuals who have neither the know-how nor the financial wherewithal to invest. It was just like every Nigerian patronage, allocate. Who does that to a major sector? And let me say, I am not lamenting now because I'm not this, I'm not that. As a city governor, the day the privatization of Edo Disco, BDC was done, under President Jonathan, Governor Dwaha of Delta State, PDP, and myself, ACN, Governor of Edo, and the Governor of Ondo State, Mimiko, we agreed to publicly dissociate ourselves. The last minute, Mimiko chicken out. I think he had challenges, he didn't want to be dealt with, but me, I'm used to being dealt with, so I have nothing. So Udwala and I, both of us short governors, we addressed a press conference at my residence that I want to place on record that the way in which these discos were privatized was a fraud, and it is designed to destroy the economies of our various of our respective states. Today, Edo Disco has been taken over by banks, and I've seen somebody celebrating it. Do banks have the know-how to run distribution companies of electricity? Is it just about cash? Cash is a consequence, because they have loaned, And if you now go into the book, you will find that what CBN has pumped into this discourse over the years is more than the total amount they used to buy 60% of the discourse. I used to tell people, as a tailor, because I was general secretary of textile garment and tailory workers, so I like to take the tailoring end. As a tailor, I know that when fabric is too weak, you keep patching it. At a point when you put the thread, if you just, so you throw away the entire fabric, and I tell, even if it is a banana, it will be better than patching a fabric that's outlived its usefulness. So these are radical decisions that need to be taken to revoke the privatization, because it wasn't done in conformity with the law on privatization. If you look at that law, it says clearly that to be eligible, you must have the evidence of financial wherewithal, two demonstrable evidence of know-how in that sector. The one in Edo was handed over to a husband and wife. The husband, a pharmacist, I'm not sure how successful, and the wife, a banker. Her bank was one of those that came under hammer because he couldn't meet and survive. The husband is the chairman, the wife is the CEO of BDC, that is Benin Delta Disco or so. How? And everything we said then has come to pass. So my own point that you tell Kwakwaso and I will tell Tinubu is you probably tell somebody I don't want to mention because I don't know how you're going to deal with it. On purpose I won't mention it. On purpose. That nobody should make promises about industrialization without a convincing explanation of what we do differently with power supply. Because like the minister said, it is becoming a joke that we are generating 7,000, we can't transmit. And when we can transmit, we can't distribute. As of a security report, and I called the management that even as the minister said, when they are able to generate and transmit, discos will buy limited quantity and give the target of revenue. And because there are no meters, they are to give you estimated bills. So to meet their target, they look at who can pay what and give you estimate. Which country allow its citizens to be so exploited? The minimum responsibility of the state is to protect the public. How can it allow private enterprise? Because the reason we celebrate the private sector, as the minister said that they got the private sector to have seriously with the planning, is because it is assumed that they are more efficient, not necessarily more honest. And unfortunately, honesty of purpose is central to outcome. So, given this contradiction, should we revoke it? My answer is no. Revoke it. In any case, order the law after 5 years. We are supposed to review. It's more than 5 years now. So, revoke it and ensure that we do not make in going back to it, because I am not advocating that the government should now take over. They acquire it, and this time appoint people who will comply with the law and ensure that if you have to privatize again, it is done in conformity with the law. That way, you can get fresh capital into the sector, people with the know-how running the discos. Discos are not like getting some allocation, some oil block, and then you get Chinese exploit it, they just pay you off. No, it's more complicated than that. And I hope, it's a pity the labor people are not here, but I think they ought to be here next time, anyway. Because only they can do the dirty job of shouting where others want to keep quiet. If we get the textile industry back, we can employ more than 20 million people when we're building the textile labor house in Kaduna, you know, we short people, we like to do things that are big. We settled for 6-story buildings. We call it textile labor house. We had a clear vision that around this time, when our population, because the projections are supposed to be clear, that we are told now we are going to be about 300 million, how many years' time? That given our consumption, Nigeria textile industry will have more than 10 million workers. And if you then look at the farmers that will produce the cotton, and the textile farmers set up Cotman. Cotman was meant to do what anybody is trying to do, or what they are doing now, to get, and I think Chief Achimugu was very much involved in the formation of Cotman. It has gone under liquidation. They were to raise money from textile employers, provide improved seedlings to the cotton growers, and then liaise with the Ahmadu Bello University to provide some kind of training, essential services. So everything was well thought out, so that the textile manufacturers guaranteed the market for the farmers. So they have no fear of where, if they are blessed with good harvest, the textile industry will take advantage rather than importing cotton lead from Kano. So this is an industry can offer so much, and it will deal decisively with both rural prosperity as well as industrial workers in the cities. I conclude by saying that most of the countries we use as examples today, they started their industrialization with special focus. I think at a point China was accounting for about 30 to 40% of the overall textile production around the world. They introduced these so-called export processing zones. And as we speak, Bangladesh, India, and several other countries, they rely on textile for their exports. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let us begin to think the way Ahmadu Bello was thinking when he established Kaduna Textiles, the way Awolowo saw the sector, Azikiwe and the rest of them. Let the current generation, they haven't failed yet, but we were in the classroom. We have a chance of doing something better, or we didn't do right yesterday. But it will require a level of fundamental change in terms of how we relate with the rest of the world. Because somebody is going to tell you we can't be island to ourselves. We are already committed to the WTO. We have to allow XYZ. The World Bank will tell us, no, you can't do this. IMS, we talk about if you want us to learn, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, if we go back to our history, the current situation we are in which the Naira is dancing like Davido or Whiskey, etc., it clearly shows that the country is not producing, and free market is not a solution. You know, the more role you give to the private sector, the more robust regulation you require, so that the social purpose of government, which doesn't coincide with the profit motive of private enterprise, can be reconciled. Our industrial policies, our monetary policies, our tariff policies, fiscal policy, etc., must align. We have a whole Ministry of Investment, Trade, Industry. I have had cause to ask why Suludo was governor. I said to them, what is the macroeconomic objective of our monetary policies? So the CBN must sit with the Ministry of Industry, with the Ministry of Trade, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and ensure that what one does complement the other. Not one driving to the left, the other one driving to the right, the other one driving to the center, yet we are all supposed to be arriving at the same destination. It doesn't happen by accident. I hope that the spirit of late Achimugu, and indeed other Nigerians, including the leaders of the First Republic like Sir Ahmadu Bello, who as early as the late 50s, before independence, came to the conclusion that Nigeria cannot and should not continue to export primary products without value addition. If they were able to do it at that time, we have no excuse not to do it now. And if we thought it was a luxury, the current situation compels a rethinking. Because in my view, the best the combined power of our armed forces and security agencies can do is to deal with the consequences of so many idle young men who have resorted to crime, whether it is terrorism, it is banditry, whatever it is called, whether locally or they find foreign partners. But the source has to be economic solution. Reinvest in education and compel state governments to revisit the logic of universal basic education. Because for the textile industry to recruit people, then you need at least to be able to read and write. But you don't need to be a graduate. With a sound primary school education, and even better still, a sound secondary education, you can be a good player in the textile industry. Most of the managers that were in the at Arewa Textile, UNTL, they were not graduates. They were sound technicians. And we can bring all of that back. So may the spirit of Paul Sunday Achimugu fire our appetite to do it, give us the courage to do differently, face the international community that is likely to ask us not to do it differently, so that we'll be back. And when you are meeting on the auspices of this foundation in the next 2-3 years, let it not be said that all of us, I mean all of us, I would especially exclude the Royal Highnesses, the emirs, because I'm not permitted to say otherwise. But for the rest of us, me inclusive, let's not dress up in contraband, imported fabrics, exporting jobs and importing poverty, and testing up our environment and subjecting everybody to fear. Thank you very much.